Namaste, Jai Hind, and welcome to this edition of The Right Stand. I'm Anand Narsimhan. First up, ladies and gentlemen, we'll begin with news that's just coming in. Ahead of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's trip to the United States later this week, Khalistan elements are running amok in New York. They have vandalized a temple not far from the venue of the Prime Minister's community event in Long Island, New York. CNN News 18 has accessed exclusive visuals sent to us by our security affairs editor Manoj Kumar Gupta. BAPS Swaminarayan Mandir in Melville, New York. A Hindu temple has been attacked in Melville, New York. Anti-Bharat graffiti and hate-filled messages have been smeared all across the walls of the temple, and an effort to deface the temple. US and Canada becoming breeding grounds for rising Hindu messiah, attacks on Hindu temples. It's an attempt by anti-Bharat forces to create fear in Hindu places where Hindu consolidation is currently happening or congregation is happening. Videos have been shared online show expletives were sprayed on the road and the signage outside the BAPS Swaminarayan Mandir at Melville. The Indian consulate in New York described the incident as unacceptable, and I'm quoting them, and raised the matter with the United States law enforcement authorities to initiate prompt action against the perpetrators. Now, top intelligence sources have further told CNN News 18 that this is routine for these Khalistani groups and outfits like the SFJ to do such acts. They are constantly creating tension around Indian consulates and missions in the United Kingdom, the USA, and in Canada. These Khalistani groups are funded by the ISI to create trouble and bad repute for Hindus, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and Bharat overall. Sikhs are against these activities, but a select group of terrorists are indulging in such acts, and they're also further intimidating those who stand up and speak out. There are regular people who are visiting the gurdwaras in these countries, but along with that, these extremist elements, some of them goons, others gangsters, and a lot of them working with these entities who are inimical to Bharat, also frequent these gurdwaras. All gurdwaras are self-funded, but a select group is spreading hate after getting foreign funding from the likes of the ISI, and especially with the task of A, defaming Sikhs, 2, pushing a secessionist agenda against Bharat, and 3, trying to deliberately insult Hindus and Bharat. ISI doesn't want big Hindu organizations to grow in these nations where Hindu consolidation, congregation is happening, groups are being created, and perhaps there is an organizing of the larger community who find their roots in Hindustan. Now, BAPS will be fully supported by the Indian mission chiefs who are in constant touch with them. Safety mechanisms are also being worked out. Let's go across to our guest this evening, Dr. Anand Ranganathan, Dushyant Sridhar, Vedic scholar, Sushant Sareen, Senior Fellow, ORF, Dr. Ranganathan, an author, political commentator, and a scientist, and a self-proclaimed Darwinian atheist. But I'm going to start with the Vedic scholar in the midst, Dushyant Sridhar. How would you see these attacks and what is happening all around? These are all areas where there is also growth in temples, more number of temples, more people taking towards Sanatan Dharma. But there are these entities who did this in Australia, they did this in the UK, and now they are back to doing this in the United States.
At the outset, Anand, namaskaram, and happy wishes on Ananta Chaturdashi, and wishes to my co-panelists as well. That said, see, as a religion, Sikhism has one extra element more than every other religion. Besides the religious fervor and tenets, it also has a beautiful embroidered layer of Rashtra Bhakti. That is how this religion was formed and is still there. And whom the people, the Sikhs that you know, I know, all of us know, have been extremely patriotic and have been so attached to Bharat Desham. And coming to their very revered Grantha called Guru Granth Sahib, that has hymns of verses of Namdev, Kabir, Ramananda, and so on. So it is a beautiful potpourri of beautiful thoughts put together. That said, as a practicing Hindu, I can tell you, Anand, while I'm performing in many of these countries, when I speak in many of these countries, Hindu consolidation is the truth. So I do see a lot of Hindus wanting to know about the civilizational ethos and the religious tenets too coming in large numbers to attend various cultural functions. That having said, this would have caused some jitters in some elements which are born and live only to create havoc and misery amongst people. So only such elements do create these kind of things where they use religious places of worship, even like temples or gurudwaras, wherever, to kind of indoctrinate people. So, but even if they are a handful, that should not happen, Anand, because even a drop of poison in a beautiful vessel of milk will spoil and curdle the entire milk. So I would say that there are a handful of people who are bent upon discrediting the growth that Bharatadesham was and has been seeing, and the tolerance that we have shown till now. And that is being used by a lot of these elements, and that's quite visible. We have seen in different parts. When I go to Toronto, I do hear a lot of such cases when I give lectures. That is the truth. And I think the Indian government should take immediate notice of it and should find ways to curb it through various means that I'm sure Sushant and my dear friend Anand are very good at to tell you all of those routes. But yes, Hindu consolidation is the truth, and a handful of people who cause such havoc in the minds of people is also the truth.
Now, they have to have some amount of support, Sushant Sareen. They can't do it on their own. So should Bharat also now move in the direction of designating certain nations as unsafe for Hindus to live in, where Hindus are suffering?
So Anand, just one tiny point of quibble against what Dushantji just said. Tolerance in the face of intolerance is cowardice, if you ask me. Frankly, we've been showing a lot of it. I have absolutely no issues with what Dushantji said about Sikhism. It's part and parcel of my belief system. But the guys who are carrying these things out are thugs and toilet cleaners. So I don't expect much better from them. But the problem is that, look, they might be in the pay of the ISI. They might be working as Khali Islamis, as I would like to call them. But the question which has to be put is to American authorities. Why is this license being given to these characters? Why is the so-called famed FBI not cracking down on these guys? Does this not fall under the rubric of hate crimes? Does this not fall under the rubric of targeting a religious community, a minority community? Or is this perfectly kosher to target Hindus, Jews? That's like their fair game now. So I think this is a question which somebody from the government should raise. These anodyne kind of statements from a Consul General or from the MEA that we condemn these incidents, they are like water off duck's back. It really leads to nothing. You have these American, officials just sidestep questions of attacks on Hindus in Bangladesh, but are very concerned about the alleged attacks on Muslims or the condition of Muslims in India. How does this work? What is the thinking behind it? But I think a far more important and critical point at this stage is that you have the Indian Prime Minister going to a country where the authorities of the country have let these thugs run amok, right? Is he going to be safe in the United States? I think that's a very serious question now. And given the fact that we've seen that the Secret Service is ideologically compromised and has proved to be utterly inefficient and inept, even in protecting people who come under their protection, including Donald Trump, either because, for political reasons or for whatever other reasons, I think it's a serious question to be asked of the Prime Minister and his security detail, whether he will be safe in a country like the United States anymore. Or will there be some kind of attack on him as well? And I don't think we can simply ignore this because we have seen these attacks take place, and we have seen that the kind of hate which has been generated in some of these countries, including by their so-called progressive media, has created a certain mindset where somebody can take it into his mind that by killing, or attacking the Indian Prime Minister, he would be doing a great service. For example, that character who was caught yesterday attacking Donald Trump, who thought he was doing a great service to the rest of humanity by targeting a presidential candidate. So
Right.
my concern is more immediate right now, and I don't know whether we have asked for iron
Well,
cast
one thing is,
guarantees have been given to our people about the Prime Minister's security.
no, not just that. If they are going to use this kind of acts of secession, acts of desecration, acts of defacing entities and faith mechanisms that are very strongly popular in Bharat and have their roots in Bharat, then we as a nation should also show some spine and raise these issues on international fora and platform, because those who are human rights champions and religious freedom champions and they pull out these US surf reports, those academics don't outline these, which is happening, what is happening on US soil. Tell me one person, Dr. Ranganathan, who in your deep dive research has actually been arrested for these kind of acts. And that person is a US citizen.
Yes.
The Sargana of these people.
Yes, and good evening to my fellow panelists. I would like to address two issues out here. One, very briefly, to deconstruct what I'm going to say for the next two and a half odd minutes. We are watching them and they are watching us. These are the two issues I'd like to discuss. We are watching them. Yes, as always, Anand, I'm not particularly concerned or perturbed by anecdotal or what an individual does in a country that is not mine against people who are ancestrally mine, let's put it that way. I am more concerned about the state, the action of the state. To put it very simply, I am not that much concerned about the crime happening. But if the state partakes in that crime or the state questions that crime, that is worrying for me. For example, for the last 50 years, we've all faced Indians, millions of Indians have faced racism outside. Now, that's not a problem till the time when the state partakes in it. The state has laws like apartheid or like the 50s, 60s America did that were actually racist, or the state is cushioning the crime of racism. That is a problem for me. So let us not shy away from the fact that Hindus are being targeted around the world. This is the price, I think, as Sushant also said, we have to pay for our tolerance. From Leicester to Toronto to Dhaka to Melbourne to Palamu to now New York, there have been hundreds of Hindu-phobic attacks. Ironically, the local Western press, Anand, covers these attacks more than the Indian press. Thank you for covering it for the start. This is selective and agenda-driven because it wants to portray India as anti-Muslim fascist Hindutva state. We've just heard the Supreme Leader of Iran bleat out this gibberish. I'm glad we responded. But how many people and how many countries will we respond to when our own people and our own opposition leaders in our own country are peddling this shameless propaganda? It's the same everywhere. The fate of Hindus is sealed, like it or not. What is happening to the peaceful community of Hindus abroad is appalling. Anand, I don't want to sound patronizing. Please don't misunderstand. But wherever you look, Hindus are suffering. It is important to highlight their suffering in a developing country than a developed one like the UK or the USA. So the second point now, they are watching us. And what do they see? They see a weak state. Let me explain. Even at this juncture, when all my sympathies are with the Hindus of the UK or Canada or the USA, I want you and all Indians and all diaspora to look at Bangladesh. From 29.5% in 1931 to 9.5% of population in 2011 to 8% now. The Hindu population of Bangladesh or erstwhile East Pakistan has dwindled decade on decade. To add to the misery, 11.3 million Hindus were forced to flee between 64 and 2013. 2.4 million perished in the 1971 genocide. As many as 1.2 million Hindus' families have been dispossessed of 2 million acres of land. Nobody is talking about anything. 12.6 million is the current population. If the trend continues, there will be none left, as many academics say, in 30 years. The spate of terrible violence, rape, murder, looting, arson, temple destruction, Anand, is a pointer to an ominous future for the Hindus there. Saving Bangladeshi Hindus is the need of the hour. The world is watching, but what are we doing? The situation is calamitous. District after district, shops have been looted, homes torched, temples desecrated, deities burnt. More than 50 Hindu teachers and vice chancellors have been forced to resign. Lynchings have happened inside police stations. We have to act. We have the CAA. It must no longer remain an amnesty. We must arm it. Even as we welcome, just 30 seconds, even as we welcome Bangladesh cricket team amid an ongoing Hindu genocide in their country, let me give you a disturbing statistics. Of the hundreds of thousands of Bangladeshi Hindu refugees who escaped the 1970-71 Bangladesh genocide and settled in India, only 14 have been given citizenship through the CAA. Only 14.
Yeah.
That is less than the number of Bangladeshi cricketers that we are currently welcoming raucously. Will we wait till we have to airlift the last Hindu from Bangladesh? This is the problem. We are watching them, but the countries are also watching us, and they are seeing that we are not acting ourselves. We are not helping Hindus ourselves.
Well, you make a very strong point there, but the point is that somewhere in power and those in power have to be convinced that the responsibility of Hindus across the world lies with Hindustan, and because there are a lot of counterpoints there saying these are people who have become natives of that country, they have adopted that country, and that's their Janmabhoomi. They may have their roots with Bharat, but not necessarily that they identify with Bharat anymore. They've embraced the culture there, and the law and order mechanism in those countries should actually work for them.